Welcome to the One Love, One Faith podcast, where we use the love of Christ and faith in His Word to navigate Christian living in the 21st century. Remember to follow us on social media at onelove_onefaith.
Hello, everyone. This is Igala Rentia.
And this is Camille, and you're listening to the One Love, One Faith podcast.
Yurigu.
Que lo que mi gente? ¿Cómo están
Hi,
todos?
guys.
Hey.
So, friend, what we
Yeah.
got for them people today?
Well, first we have some news. We've got a little bit of
Yes,
news to share.
yes,
I don't think we've
yes.
done a little country where our listeners update for a little while now. So
Facts.
we have an update in the rankings. This has never happened before. This is the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
Singapore was in the runnings. Singapore is making its presence
Mm.
known now because they overtook Canada.
Mm. Ooh, Canada, what you doing?
They overtook Canada just by a smidge, but hey, number 3 is number 3.
Listen, third is
Third
third. We don't get
place.
medals for fourth. Mm-mm.
Exactly.
Wow.
So,
Wow. That is actually one of the countries that I want to visit. So, Singapore, hey, hey, hey. We're glad that you're downloading and that you're listening. We appreciate the support. To the other countries, we appreciate the support as well. And if you want to be the top three, just get your downloads up. Send it to a friend who knows a friend who also knows a friend who knows their grandma, who knows their grandma's cousin, and just keep it going.
exactly. But we appreciate all of
Yes.
you and we're grateful for our top 3. Congratulations.
Yes. Yes. Thank you guys.
So, what are we doing today?
Okay, friends. So, you know how we haven't done Love Zone in a minute? And y'all love Love Zone? I mean, I know y'all love Between the Verses, but you will love Love Zone as well. So,
Love Zone is a close second. A close second.
we have Love Zone with a little bit of twist, a little bit of something we've never done before. And I'm excited. What you think, friend?
Yeah, I'm excited too. It's been a while. I think we did one maybe like right after we changed the episodes. I don't know. We did one a
Hmm.
while back, but it's been a while. And we used to do one every month,
Yes.
every second week.
Yes.
So now we're going to figure out a rotation, but I'm excited to
Ooh.
bring it back. And you're right. We do have like a
Yeah.
different perspective this time for sure.
Yes. So we're always talking about relationships and singleness and marriage and what it would be like and just our perspective on it. But we never really talked about marriage from a divorcee's perspective. So today we wanted to see what divorcees have to say about what they would have done differently when they were married. And I think this is a great topic because many people who are aspiring to be married and people who are actually married now and are dealing with, challenges that come with marriage, they get to hear this perspective and maybe this will help them in their marriage and in their aspirations of wanting to be married. So we think that it's a great topic to really and truly discuss.
Yeah, in any area of life or the projects that we do or anything, it's nice to hear from people who have done it before. And it's nice to learn from other people's, advice or mistakes so that we don't have to make the same missteps. And so we thought this was a really, really unique take, a unique view. Hear from people who do have failed experiences in marriage and learn from what they're saying.
Absolutely. We agree. We agree. So we have some comments. We spoke to friends. And honestly, I think, friend, when we read through some of these comments, we're like, oh my gosh, this is so sad.
Yeah,
Because I
yeah, it
just feel
was.
like so many people just, I hate when we come to a realization like after we could have done something about it. And I think this was a lot. And I love the comments that it wasn't like blaming the next person or blaming the next person. It was people genuinely saying, I could have done this to make it work. I could have done that to make it work.
Taking
So
accountability.
yes, it's accountability. And oof, you ready to jump in, friend?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready. So I guess what we'll do is we'll read the person's comment and then,
Mm-hmm.
we'll talk about it.
Okay. So the first one, friend.
Hmm.
This person said, "I wish I had not tried to fix my wife. She would talk to me and share, and immediately I would start working out how I'm going to solve the issue. Looking back, I was never there for her in the moment she needed me the most. She told me after our divorce that she never felt heard, and she was right."
Yeah. She never felt heard,
Mm,
and he agrees with her. Everyone wants to feel heard, right? And
mm-hmm,
once you're in a relationship or married, then that person is the person that you want to hear you. Like that's the person you want to confide in and talk to about everything.
mm-hmm,
And so, my take on this is that we should all check in with our partners to see what their desires are for these types of conversations because if personally for me, if I had done it in some if I had done that talk in some relationships to understand what was needed, it would have saved a lot of grief. Uh, yeah, it definitely
mm,
would. So I think that when someone takes the position that he was taking while he was married, right? Always trying to solve things. It's not a bad thing. Like especially
right.
for a man position, for the male position, but for either, like it's just not a bad thing. You love the person and you're trying to fix it. You're trying to make it better. It comes from a place of
Mm-hmm.
caring about them. The other party just wants to help you. Maybe they're a
Yeah.
fixer or maybe they just want to take a load off of you so that you feel less stressed. They see you struggling, so they're trying to come up with solutions, and that's how they're expressing their love. But on the other
Mm,
side of it, right? And I feel like I'm often on the other side of it. I feel his
mm-hmm.
wife's pain. When someone just wants a listening ear, or they want sympathy, or they want to vent, it can be very off putting when the person is like, well, you should have done this. Well, what about you try this and you try that? And
Ooh, yeah.
it's coming from a good place, but you're just like, oh my goodness, will you just listen to me, please? Will you just listen? And so I've actually been there and I heard a suggestion from someone that you actually talk about what do you want in this conversation. So you can go to your partner
Mm-hmm.
and when you're talking about something and they can say, okay, solve it or listen. You want me to listen or solve it? And then you're like, no, I'm just listen to me for a second. Like actually say it so that you're on the same page about what this conversation is about. And maybe if they had been able to try that method, it could have helped. And I know that I've been on both sides of it. I've tried this method, it's very effective. And I've been in
Yes.
situations where I didn't have that method and I felt unheard.
No, I agree, friend. I think that it is important to really state what it is that you're looking for out of a conversation. I've done it with friends. I've never done it in a relationship. And yeah, I'm with you, friend. We share the same sentiment. Yep, 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 yep.
Yep,
Don't
yep,
feel
yep.
heard.
Don't feel
But
heard.
yes, I've asked a friend, she was talking to me about something, and I was like, hey, do you want me to give you advice or do you just want me to listen? Do you just want comfort? Do you want us to solve the problem? Like, what exactly do you want us to like really and truly? What is the goal of the conversation? And from most of the times, it's just like, hey, I just need some encouragement. Like that's it. It's
Hmm.
not, oh, you should have done this, you should have done that. Like that's not what they're looking for. They're looking for, hey, you are going to be okay. You
Yeah.
can do this. Just try again. Maybe try a different way, but you got it. I've seen you done this so many different times. You got this. You're smart, you're intelligent, you can handle this. You are made for this. Like that's what they want to hear. They don't want to hear, oh, you should maybe you should go down there and then maybe take this and maybe like no. The worst thing you could do is to tell somebody what they did wrong. Like in a moment where they're like, "Oh my gosh, like all I'm trying to do is just tell you something." Like they do not want to hear that what they did was wrong or the method they used was incorrect, you know? And even if it was in the moment, that maybe not what they want to hear, you know?
Right.
So
There's a time
I
for
agree,
it.
friend. Yes,
Right. And you're right. Like this
absolutely.
is a useful method for any relationship conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like any type of relationship. Like yes, it's useful in romantic relationships, but yeah, there's no reason you can't do it with your friends too. And this
Absolutely.
doesn't mean that you shouldn't tell somebody when they were wrong or give them a helpful suggestion. But
Right.
sometimes someone is coming to you because they want you to listen and be on their side
Yeah.
for once.
Yeah. And it's also good to be able to gauge like a person's feeling and to gauge when to speak or when to give certain criticism. Um, and I think knowing those moments, especially if somebody is distraught, like knowing that maybe pointing out a flaw would not be the best thing to do in this moment. Maybe wait a day or two. Especially in relationships, it's never good to really go head on like right then and there. It's always good to like maybe let a person vent, cool off, and then say, "Hey, can I sit down and talk to you later on?" Later on, of course. Sit down and talk to them and be like, "Hey, like I hear what you're saying, but have you ever thought about looking at it from this lens, from this perspective?" And I think it makes a world of difference when a person has already cooled off from the situation and is ready to just be like, "Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. Cool." I think people are more receptive in those instances.
Yeah, I agree with you. And you also have to know your partner. You
Yes,
know, are they the kind of person that wants to be talking about it right now? Do they need some time to cool off? So it is a lot about knowing your partner's needs and the type of person they are as well. And whatever you guys decide on is what you guys decide on and what works for you. But if you do find yourself in a situation like him, then just know that sometimes what people are looking for is for you to listen first.
absolutely. I agree.
Yeah. Okay, so the next one, friend. It says, I wish I wasn't so cheap. I'm a saver to the core and I never put a penny to my marriage. No date nights, no excursions, no counseling. I kept telling her that we just didn't have it in our budget, which we did. I worked so hard at buying our gorgeous home and giving our 4 kids private education that I lost sight of what matters most, my family. If I could go back, I would have lived in an apartment and kept my family together.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. Wow. This is so interesting, friend,
Mm-hmm.
because I've always heard people in relationships say, things weren't reciprocated, things weren't this, things weren't that. And sometimes it's not reciprocated because they can't afford it. But I never really thought about this from a relationship or a marriage perspective. Like people being frugal. Oftentimes you see that when they're saving for retirement and they're like, oh, let me put this money on this house so that when I retired, I don't have to work this hard. I'm not trying to work when I'm 60 and all those different type of stuff. But in those cases, you realize that the things that you're saving for, you never really get a chance to enjoy it. And I'm pretty sure that the big house and all of those different things that were in the budget, right? Right? He wanted to enjoy it with his family, and now he can't because he spent so much time fixating on what it is that he can and cannot do. But the fact of the matter is, we are doing all of these things to enjoy life with our spouses, right? It's not about paying bills. Like, we cannot live our lives, guys. Okay, hear me out. We should pay our bills. Let's just get that straight.
I mean, we
But we
have to.
can't live to pay our bills. Like,
Hmm.
we can't just exist just to pay them people money,
Yeah.
right? Like, there's so
Hmm.
many things in life that we should be enjoying with the people that we love, with our friends, with our family, with our wives, with our husbands, with our children. You know what I mean? Like, life is just so much. I look at all these different countries that we want to do and the things that we want to do, friend, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. And we talk about this so much, and it would be so amazing to share it with the person that you love the most, right? So, yes, sometimes it's good to have a budget, and it's really good when you have a partner who is able to manage finances wisely. But, guys, we should be able to budget for feeding into our marriages and our relationships, whether it be friendships, marriage, whatever it is. we should be budgeting. We should make sure that we make time to do all those little fun stuff, even if even if it's inexpensive, you know? Like drive around the neighborhood and look at lights, look at houses, like whatever it is, just spend time with your partner.
Yeah, that's good advice, friend. I know I
Yeah.
mean, no matter what country you live in, what age you're at, life is tough. Things are rough right now in a lot of different economies. So I don't know what level everyone is at, but you do have to find something. You do have to find something. And sometimes it does involve saying, hey, I'm going to sacrifice this to make a special moment or experience for us. And I think that's really crucial. And for him, the one, for him that made the comment, like, he did have it. And I know that hurts him so much
Yeah.
because he's saying, in hindsight, I did have it. And in hindsight,
Mm.
I would have rather lived smaller with my family and
Yeah.
done those things than to be now I didn't do it and now I don't have my family with me in the
Yeah.
same home. And that's a really painful regret to have to live through. So I say do it, I mean, I'm not advocating to like risk your shelter or anything like that,
Right.
to do something special. But sometimes, make that extra effort, make
Yeah.
make the
It's
budget
worth
work,
it.
go on a
Mm-hmm.
trip, even if it's like on a smaller scale or a road trip, do something.
Yeah.
Because, what he's saying is I would rather have my family here. I was obsessing
Mm-hmm.
over the stuff that we really, really didn't need in order to be happy.
Guys, this is definitely something that is an eye opener for everybody. I hope this is because even
Yeah.
for us, like reading through all of these comments, we're like, wow, oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
But for men, it can, especially for men, I think it can be very, how they tell us that men are financially minded and women are
Right?
biologically, cognizant of their
Emotionally.
biological clock, and men are more on a financial
Mm-hmm.
clock. Men are providers. So, of course, they're worried about, I want my kids to have this, I want my family to have this. It's not a bad trait at all.
Yeah,
They are to
absolutely.
be the leaders and the providers. It's just
And we
that.
love that. We love that.
Right. You
Uh-huh.
have to be a provider, but you also have to recognize that there has to be time for fun. And something you said too, like living to pay bills. Yes, we have to pay them, but if you work so hard for the big house and everything like that, and then you never get to be in the big house because you're always working to have the big house, then what was
It
the
makes no
point?
sense. Yeah,
What was the
it makes no
point?
sense. Mm-mm.
So we all have to kind of look at ourselves, look at what our budgets are, look at what we want out of life, what's most important, and
Yeah,
make it work.
yeah, absolutely. Wow.
Yeah.
All right, friend, let's jump into the next one.
Okay.
This one said, I wish I had nagged less and say more positive words to my husband. I didn't want to admit it while we were married, but now that I have space, I can see why he felt constantly nagged. Nothing was perfect for me, and I let him know. Through counseling, I've learned that my expectations were way too high and that he could never ever have met them. Wow. No matter how hard he tried. Oof.
She was Miss Perfectionist, she said.
Dang.
Yeah.
This is so sad. It's so sad because because I understand this to a certain degree, right? Like we have certain things that we want, or we have certain ways of doing things, right?
Hmm.
And we can't help when it bothers us. Some people are really OCD with certain things, right?
Yes.
And I remember having friends over. I had actually it was my mom came to visit me,
Hmm.
and we do things differently. And even though there will be certain things that I would like a certain way, I was very mindful that I don't want her to feel uncomfortable because this is her home as well. And so even if I had to be a little bit uncomfortable to make sure she's good, then I am willing to do that. And I think a lot of times people don't want to sacrifice their comfort or feel like everything deserves a comment And I just feel like it makes people feel hurt and feel like they're not enough, and anything they do is not enough. And I don't think that is fair, and I don't think that is thoughtful, right? There's so many things that certain people are good at, right? And so maybe if the discussion was, hey, I'm good at this, why don't you do this because you're stronger at this, maybe it would have been a different conversation. You know what I mean? So guys, I say this to say, don't nitpick at everything. You know what I mean? There's certain things that just choose your peace over it, man. Like certain things don't need to be said. And I think that if we really and truly take a step back to be like, is this really that important that I need to point it out? Or is there a way I can say this without sounding mean or sounding as if I am, because you know how some wives are really and truly like, hey, I can't even get my husband to pick up a plate. You're complaining about the wrong things, man. And certain people would wish they had that issue where they had the help. And I'm not saying that, you can't show your partner how to do certain things, but sometimes if it's not if it's not helpful comments, just
I
maybe.
struggle with this one because I think it's the word nagged, which sounds crazy, but I always I don't know.
I know, friend, but sometimes it be like that though. We can't be
I
biased.
know, but the like the whole like oh nagging wife, like sometimes it's just coming from a I mean you just have to know the situation. Sometimes it's coming from a place of, I need help. I need you to see where you can pitch in. I need you to see where we can share the burden
Mhm.
more. I think there's always situations like that. And then there's always someone saying, oh, you nag, you nag, you nag, not realizing that it's not really nagging, or or realize the source of it maybe and try to
Okay.
solve it together. But to her point, she did say that, she was wanting him to do something that was basically unobtainable. And in that regard, yeah,
Mm,
obviously you do have to let up. You
yeah.
do have to make manageable, attainable, goals, or targets for people. And that's definitely not fair. Like you're saying, how important is it? How important is it? So definitely grade it. And in a relationship, when you're sharing a home, it's hard, especially if you're like different styles
Mm,
of living, or like you said, something is way more important to one person over another. Like it's it can be difficult to balance. So just make sure you're
yeah.
checking in with each other, reframing the way you ask something because you know your partner and what they respond to, or what they start
Mhm.
responding to negatively. And then also make sure that you're acknowledging the wins that they have, the things that they do well.
Yes,
You're not always
absolutely.
just saying, oh, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, you didn't do this, I hate how you do this. What about the wins? Are there wins that you can acknowledge? A simple thank you always goes a long
Yeah.
way. Hey, I noticed that you did that the other day. Thanks, that really helped me out. That goes a long way, and it
Yeah.
encourages the person to do more because now they feel
Yep.
appreciated. So, yeah,
Absolutely, friend. I
yeah.
agree.
That was good
I
advice
agree.
from her, though. Like, make sure that you are not being a perfectionist.
Mhm. All right. What's the next one, friend?
Okay, the next one says, I wish I would have forgiven him. He cheated on me and it hurt. When I caught him, I could tell he
Mm.
was sorry and wanted to save our marriage. He was willing to do anything to get me back and keep our family together. I just kept holding on to the pain and stayed angry at him. I let him know that he was a terrible person by my daily bad attitude. I didn't want to admit it to him, but he truly changed over time. He got healthy. The problem was that I did not. My unforgivingness got the best of me and kept me from really living. I am still angry and sad because I couldn't forgive him. I couldn't let it go. It is the biggest regret that I will live with forever. Now I don't see my kids on certain holidays and their birthdays, all because I couldn't forgive.
Wow.
That's so sad.
Ah,
I
I
hate when
feel
families
okay.
are separated like that, It's such a big deal. Like, it's such a big deal. There's so many blended families in the world, and I know it can work, and I know, people make it work and it balances out, and you have more love in your life with with the additional parents and step parents and siblings. But at the end of the day, I know that there's still real, true hurt when you cannot be physically present in moments because you have different
Yeah.
households, different schedules, different families. I know
Mm.
that's just really hard. It makes me sad when that happens.
I don't know, friend. This one is very tough because I can understand what she's saying. Um, and it sounds like she's doing a lot of like blaming on herself. And I get what she's saying. She's like, I wish that I could have, maybe try to process what happened and maybe try um, to forgive him. And I look at it like this because
Hmm.
I don't think some people understand how devastating it is when you have someone on like on a moral pedestal, right? And they disappoint you. And it goes with friendships, you know what I mean? There's certain people who they can do something to me and it means nothing. I feel nothing. It's just like, okay, whatever. Like, you know what I mean? But then there are others who would you I think friend my friends think that I'm this like this tough person, right? Which sometimes emotionally I don't really show a lot of emotions in certain instances, but some of my friends who I genuinely like really who I'm close with and who've gotten to see like certain aspect of my life and gotten to see like the real person and like who I am,
Hmm.
those are the people I feel like can crush me to the core. And I feel like that's what she was experiencing. She had so much high expectation of him, and I feel like she was just like distraught that he did that. Maybe it's just a betrayal that she just didn't see coming. Maybe she was one who would go to the cross for her husband and be like, yo, like, nah, 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 nah. Not my husband. Not my. And maybe she just felt like, wow, like I'm so hurt by your actions. And the Bible talks about forgiveness a lot, but it's not easy. It's not something that is easy. You know what I mean? It is a constant fight to see somebody and wanting to work things up with them and not be able to like bring up what they've done. And if you choose to like
Yeah.
remain in a relationship with someone who has hurt you, like you should not. That's not healthy to bring up something that they've done in the past to hurt you. If you decide to stay, you must be able to, you should be able to. If you can't, you shouldn't. Because it's not fair to that person, you know, for you to be bringing up something that they did before because you get what I'm saying, right? So, yeah, it's challenging, especially when a person maybe is a person who loves hard and maybe that's what this person is dealing with and I empathize with her.
Yeah, forgiveness is hard, like you said, and especially in cases of betrayal, it can feel really, really unbearable. Um, I think something we all should consider when we're in these circumstances, and I guess my advice is more tilted toward marriage. Although people choose to stay in dating relationships after unfaithfulness. But I think nothing's wrong with taking a break now to save things long term. And if you're going to make
Yeah.
the decision to stay in a marriage, sometimes you need that time or you need space or something. So I think that's something that can be considered. And then also the decision, it's a big one. It's a huge decision to decide if
It
you're
is.
leaving, if you can't overcome it, or if you're staying. But the fact of the matter is that if you choose to stay and fight for the relationship, then you actually have to fight. You actually have to work
Mhm.
hard at the forgiving and the healing. And healing doesn't mean that you've forgotten what happened. It doesn't mean that it's not going to take time to rebuild trust, but it does mean that day by day you're choosing love and you're choosing
Yeah.
to overcome it and to work together to be better and be okay again, and you're not choosing resentment. You have to be honest about your pain, but you
Yeah.
also have to be open to growth and open to what their truth was and open to fixing and repairing and making,
Yep.
helping and doing your part to make sure it doesn't happen again. And so you have to be committed to trying. And I'm not saying it's an easy
Yeah.
process because it's
Yeah.
not. It's
Yeah.
not. But for that reason, I would recommend that people actually get professional counseling help for
Yes.
situations where there's been unfaithfulness because that's where you're going to get the tools. that you need
Mm-hmm.
to heal and to actually know what forgiveness means in these situations, because she said she had a daily bad attitude. And I mean, yeah, because betrayal hurts,
Yeah.
and it's hard in
Mm-hmm.
moments when they're sitting there and they say something, or you're looking at something, or you just want to be like, you couldn't think about that when you was doing that stuff a
Mm-hmm.
couple months ago. Like, it's hard. We are
It
but
is.
humans. It is hard.
Yep.
But you have to decide, if you're in it or you're not. And when you're in it, you have to work to heal.
Yeah. You know what, friend? I think it's it's a good idea to also have when two people are sitting down and talking about like issues that they have, especially
Hmm.
like if it's like this big, is I
Hmm.
think it would be wise to have a mediator, and I think that's where a counselor comes in because
Yeah.
I don't think friends, I, regardless of how wise your friend is, I don't think that's a good idea because you don't want any form of bias. You want to hear, and I think most counselors are able to like dissect. This is what you could have done. Like here are some things that you could do when you go home. Do this XYZ. You like you said they give you the tools, and I think that sometimes it takes a third party to be able to be like, okay, this is where you went wrong. This is where you went wrong. This is. Do you hear what this person is saying? This person is saying this. Have you? Yeah. Have you thought about what exactly? So I think you know this is in instances like this, counseling is definitely something that people should seek.
Yeah, you need that professional help, that unbiased party, and
Yeah.
really, because I mean, it's something that you wouldn't know how to get past if you hadn't gotten
Mm-hmm.
past it before. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
What's the next one,
Next
friend?
one, friend. Okay.
Okay.
So this one says, I wish I had done premarital counseling. I saw red flags when we were dating and ignored them. Looking back, I was naive and way too optimistic about our relationship. I know he wasn't a good fit for me, and later on he admitted that he knew I wasn't a good fit for him. Once we were married, things got bad, and we were only married for 2 years. 2 years, that's it. Thankfully, we didn't have children, but the emotional stress has been overwhelming. I wish I had been wiser, smarter, and more self aware in those dating years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hindsight is 2020, right, friend? Hindsight is always
Yeah.
2020 after the
Yeah.
fact.
Yeah.
You remember when we did
Mm-hmm.
our red flags episode?
Ooh, colorblind.
We just are colorblind sometimes. Like, the heart
Yeah.
does what its thing, and the brain is trying to tell you, hey, you gotta
Mm-hmm.
you gotta look out for your heart, because it's
Yeah.
not thinking properly all the time. But your heart does
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Something that I saw in there that I want to point out to, friend, that I've heard,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm saying this, when I say it, it's gonna sound ridiculous, but I have heard it. I have heard it from people. I've heard it from friends. I've heard it from partners. And let me tell you, when something is not going right, when there are problems in a relationship, marriage is not what's
It's
going to
not going to
fix
fix
it.
it.
How many times have
Absolutely.
you heard someone
A
say, like, oh,
lot.
we'll get married and this won't be a problem? No, no,
Mm,
no, no,
don't
no.
lie. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's
Do
not true.
not fall for that. I've even had people go as far as to say, oh, like, oh, a baby will fix it. Let's have a baby and then he'll love me
Ooh.
more. Or our family will be better because they'll be more committed. No.
Yes.
Making
Don't
someone
don't
your
do that.
husband or wife will not fix the problems. Bringing a
Mm,
baby into the situation, bringing a child into the situation, even if you are already married, is not going to solve it.
it won't.
Not going to solve it.
Mm-mm.
So I recommend. I'm glad she said she wished she had done premarital counseling. I know that you and I, like, we're coming from the psychology, social work, therapy background, so we are biased. But nevertheless, it's true, right, friend? Like, premarital counseling, you can't go wrong. I
Mm-hmm.
don't recommend anyone, like, once you're engaged, I recommend no delay seeking that type of insight and professional counseling on
Absolutely.
your match, on your relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to trustworthy family members that you know you can depend on. Listen
Yes.
to a licensed counselor. They have helpful insights. And if you are the kind of person who is fearful of asking for your trusted family member's opinion, or going to a counselor because you think it might break up the relationship because they're going to
Mm-hmm.
point out the red flags that you're trying to ignore, then you
That is a
already
red flag.
know.
That
You
is a red flag.
already know you're in a bad
Yeah.
spot. Don't ignore that voice.
Hmm.
If that is your fear, then you already have a huge problem. You know something is wrong and you're trying to run from it. So get those trusted opinions, get the advice. I don't see a downside to getting counseling, honestly, because if you're a
Yeah.
good match, then all it is going to do is give you the tools to prepare you for marriage. And if you're not a
Exactly.
good match, then you're saving yourself from making a really big mistake because marriage is a humongous
Hmm.
huge, big, large, grand, grande. It's a big choice, okay? So there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with premarital counseling if you can afford it.
Yeah. And if you can't afford it and you have a church home, talk to your pastor,
True.
right? Talk to
A
your
lot of
pastor.
them have counseling degrees.
Exactly. A lot of them will give you, and re- honestly, some of our pastors have, like you said, counseling degrees, but some of them are very, very good at, especially those who you know is like for the Lord. You know, they're sent by God. They're called.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those people are, I believe, gifted in certain areas, and I think that would be a great start if you can't afford a counselor, because I know sometimes those things can be pricey.
True.
So talk to your pastor, right? And also, friend, with that, I think also too, there's so many times I feel like most people are colorblind when they're so fascinated with the idea of marriage. And so I think that we can't allow ourselves to idolize it so much that we don't really take the time to look at, will it work with this person? You know what I mean?
Yep.
I 100% believe that marriage should not be like thought of as like, it shouldn't be an accomplishment. Don't look at it like I've accomplished this thing. I think it should be more of like, this is what I'm called to do. I'm called to be a
Mm.
husband, and I'm
Yeah.
called to be a wife. And I think that when we look at it like a calling, we tend to want to nurture it more. We tend to want to be able to like strengthen whatever skills that we need. But when it's an accomplishment, it's almost like, okay, I've accomplished this, so okay, that's it. Some people look at it like, okay, I've conquered this, what's next? You know what I mean? And I don't think that sometimes when we get to that spot, it's like, okay, I think even in relationships, you see somebody putting out all the efforts to get a person, when they do, they stop trying. And that's why I say it cannot be an accomplishment, or shouldn't be looked at as an accomplishment. It more so should be looked at as a calling. You know, it's a gift. The Bible says that he that findeth a wife findeth a good thing, and obtain favor from the Lord. So it's a gift. Just like you have the gift of singleness, it's a gift from God. And I think that when we have a gift, like the Bible talked about the person with the talents, we should make sure that we are tending to it and that we are trying to grow and try to make it better.
I agree wholeheartedly. And I like that. I like that, friend. I like the way, like, change your perspective on what it is. Of course, being married for 30, 40, 50 years, of course, it is an accomplishment. But don't
Mm-hmm.
think
Yes.
of attaining marriage as just another goal in life. I like that view.
Mm-hmm.
Is it something that God has instructed you to do? Is this the person that he's linking your future spiritual and life journey with? Because then
Yeah.
it's like a mission and a calling, like you said. I like that. I like that.
Yeah. All right, friend. What's next?
All right, what's next is
Ooh.
I wish I had been honest about my religious views. I kept them
Ooh.
hidden because I loved my husband so much and didn't think it would be a big deal. Then I grew more deep in my faith and had kids and wanted to raise them in the church, and he did not. It became the biggest issue in our marriage, and I built up a lot of resentment towards him, which is unfair to him since I never talked about my religious expectations.
Hmm.
Friend,
This is what we're talking about.
I mean, this
Marriage
must
does
have been
not
in the
fix anything.
first like 20, 30 episodes. We
Mm.
talked
Yeah.
about how important in one of the early love zones we talked about
Mm.
um how important it is to talk about everything,
Yes.
not to hide what your expectations are. Talk about your religious beliefs because not
Mm.
discussing them, not living in your religious or spiritual truth, and not talking about how you want to raise the kids, these are missteps. their mistakes. And especially when there's a fundamental value or belief difference or a
Mm-hmm.
difference of religious denomination, that is when you need the talks even more. It is not a step that you can skip. It just, once something
Unfortunately.
is a value system for you, it's going to determine how you live your life, what you do, what you say, where you live, where you go, everything. And so,
Mm.
how can it not be a joint mission between you and your partner if it's going to dictate so much of your lifestyle? So, of course, that was a hard lesson to learn.
Yes, I think this is a huge mistake. If you think that especially if your faith is something that you are grounded in and it influences your life in various ways and in every way rather, this is not something that you can be like, oh, like it will pass, you know what I mean? Like, no, you feel me? Like, this cannot be something that you willy-nilly do. um and honestly, sometimes I feel like not disclosing how you feel about religion is sometimes deceptive. Like we said, like some people want to be married so badly that these core things, are overlooked. And not only that, too, I think sometimes we think that we can change a person's perspective after you've been married and they see that, oh, he loves me so much, he falls in love with me so much that he wants to change. Ciao. That is not your job. That's the Lord's job. And he ain't tell you that. So don't do that. You know what I
True.
mean?
True,
We
true,
can't
true.
always think that that is always going to be the course. It may work for somebody else, but it
Hmm.
might not work for you. And so it's so funny because one of my friends asked me the other day, he asked me, would you date somebody who you can see a potential in, but they haven't changed yet, and you don't know if they're going to change? And I said to them, I have to ask myself if they don't change anything about themselves and they remain the exact same way, would I be able to love that person for 20, 30, 40 years? And if this is something that is important to you, you must look at it and be like, can I live with this for 20, 30, 40 years, overlooking certain things that are very important to me? So I say this to say,
Right.
guys, don't do that.
Yeah, it's a big risk to,
Mm,
yeah, to assume or to believe in potential or potential, um, outcomes. Now, there
yeah.
is something in this though, friend, I think that is something that some people do. It's going to be a, what's the word, a challenge or hardship that some people do have to tackle in their relationships, and that is when you were not as deep in your faith, because she said she grew in her faith during the relationship, right? Or what if
Ooh,
you go through a religious or Christian conversion after you're already married to someone? And that's a
ooh,
real battle that some people do face, and I don't want our answers to seem like we're not being mindful of that as well. So that is another
yes,
challenge, and that's separate. I don't know about those. You have to pray, pray,
yeah.
pray, because if you have a religious conversion afterwards and now you're mismatched with your partner, that's something to
Ooh,
pray about. Pray that God works on their heart, be the light of Jesus in their life. And that's a tough place to be in. I'm not going to lie about that. I
mm,
can't hide
yeah,
that. That's a
that's a
tough
tough
place to be
one.
in if you start
Ooh,
turning towards God when that wasn't how you were in the beginning, and now it's a difference
mm,
between you and your partner. That's rough. That is really rough.
yeah. I never thought of that point, friend. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah,
No,
that's
that
a really
is
tough place to
something that
be
is
in.
very challenging, and that would be challenging, guys.
Hmm.
And like you said, it's about prayer. It's about, because I've heard stories like that where parties, they weren't like, Christians, and the wife, found Christ. Sometimes the husbands too, but I mainly see wives
Yeah,
finding Christ, and prayer and just love for each other brought husbands into the church. And we love that, but it will be challenging if this is your
yeah,
story. And we pray. This probably is going to be something that we can put in our prayer points, like, Lord, help those couples, because I never really
yeah.
thought of that.
And
Wow.
something that always scares me about marriage is like once you've passed the point of dating and you're married to someone, you're committed to love that person in every instance of their existence and every form and change that they go through and every, you know? And so just
Mm,
because you might have changed or they might have changed religious belief doesn't mean, oh, okay, well, we don't match each other anymore or we grew apart. Like
right.
you agreed and vowed to love this person through whatever, right? Through whatever
Mm-hmm.
version that they become. And that's the unknown risk in marriage that sometimes
Yeah.
makes me a little fearful. But anyway, if you do find yourself in that position, just know that God sees and He knows, and
Yes.
just do your best to be the light
Yes.
of
No.
Jesus in that situation.
Absolutely. I'm praying for you. Okay. The next one says, I wish I had been more proactive. I truly believe that if we had loved each other, we'd be fine. And now I can see that we didn't have a plan. We weren't intentional with our time and rarely did things to make our marriage a priority. We just kind of fell in the slump and slowly drifted apart. I look back often and I think our marriage could have been saved if we fought harder and got off autopilot. Again, we cannot stop working once we have gotten to that place. You know what I
True.
mean? Like we can't go through the motion. In life, we don't go through the motion in anything
Mm-hmm.
because when we are at work, we strive to make sure that we meet productivity so that we can keep our jobs. And
True.
it can't be different when we're at home. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's working hard so you keep your marriage alive. You know what I mean? Relationships, even with friendships, we have to work because listen, sometimes I'm not the best communicator, right? But I
You have
know
to
that I've got
check
to
in.
call my friends to make sure they're good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know what
Every
I mean?
relationship has maintenance.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So you do now, friend. I'm gonna bring up something that's gonna shame us. It's gonna not. That's not the right word.
Ooh,
It's just
ooh,
gonna,
right.
you know. So you remember that we were coming up
Mm-hmm.
with this list of like 101 things to do to keep the spice in your relationship,
Ooh, I know.
friend. We said we was gonna make a little booklet, and we
Ooh,
even came up with the reasons. Friend, we
ooh,
have a whole shared Apple, I
we do.
Apple note
Notes,
about it.
we do. Mm-hmm.
So we gonna get back on
We
that,
do.
guys. We gonna get back on that.
Yes.
But something that
Yeah.
I learned, right, is that communication issues are the number one complaint when people go to couples therapy, right? Guess what the
Mm.
number two issue is? Emotional distance. And I think
Ooh,
that's what happens in relationships. It starts with the
yeah.
small moments when you decide to turn away from each other. And it might seem like it just happened. You hear people say that all the time. I don't know, one day I woke up and I
Mm.
didn't know who they were anymore. Or one day we had grown apart. But it didn't start there. It started in these little tiny choices where it might not have seemed like you intentionally did this, but it was a choice in little moments to turn away from each other, to drift apart. And so, that's one of my other fears in a relationship,
Mm.
going apart or
Yeah.
drifting apart. And the maintenance that it takes has to be a committed effort from both
Both
parties.
ends.
It's
Yeah.
not a small thing. It has to be intentional every day, checking in with each other often so that you don't end up in a place where you didn't make the marriage a priority.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm telling you, we gotta nurture our relationships. We gotta water the plant.
Hmm.
I don't remember. I don't know who came up with the saying, but the saying says the grass is green where you water it.
True.
So if you're not watering your marriage, the grass is gonna get dry, and then you're gonna think that the grass is greener elsewhere, and then you're going to realize that the grass is not greener elsewhere. It's green where you water it.
Where you invest. Exactly.
Exactly.
Well, friend, we have one more. It's just one more.
We have one more.
Okay. So this one says, I wish I had spoken up about my feelings. For my 15 years of marriage, I was very lonely and never said
Aw.
anything to my wife. I just went to work, hung out with the kids, helped with the house, but deep down inside, I was hurting. I pretended to be happy, but I was faking it in every area of life. I wish I had sat down with my wife over dinner and just told her, I love you and I feel lonely. Help. I numbed my
Aw.
loneliness with alcohol and eventually drank my sorrows away. My wife left because I ended up drinking and driving with our kids in the car. That was it for her. She was done. If only I had told her I was lonely decades ago, I would still have my family.
I'm
It's so
so sad to hear
sad.
that. Oh my gosh.
I know it's so sad.
Oh my
Some of these are
gosh,
so sad, but
man.
whew, we have to learn lessons not just from our own mistakes, you know? Um,
Oh yeah.
Something that I've always like I think I heard it one day, but then now I have understood what it feels like, right? We might all feel alone sometimes or feel lonely, or maybe you're not lonely in life, but you're lonely in like a relationship partnership that you would love to have, and you're not in a
Mm-hmm.
relationship right then or what have you. But the only thing worse, friend, than feeling alone, than being lonely, there's one thing worse than it, and that's
Is
being
being in a
surrounded by a bunch
relationship.
of people, like he said,
Mm.
and still feeling like you're all alone. Now,
Oh
when I read his story, I felt like there could have been something deeper going on there, you
yeah.
know, where he would have needed to seek professional or individual counseling support to sort out what was going on. You know, there could be depression, there
Mm-hmm.
could be something else going on. But also, it could be a couple that let life and tasks get in the way of connecting with each other. And we just talked about that.
Yeah.
Choosing to turn towards each other every day. It's a choice. I heard a couples counselor say that one of the most important ways that partners can show up for each other is by being open to moments and opportunities for connection. And so he was like, I mean, you can have date night every week if that helps you, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It does mean knowing each other's love language and stuff, but it also just means don't miss the little moments for connection. It doesn't have to be those
Mm-hmm.
grand things. It doesn't have to be. There was a rule I saw once. It was like go on a date night once every 7 days and a trip once every 7 months. It was like a
Yeah.
whole like
I heard that.
timing thing.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many smaller scale things that are necessary as well. So we all have
Mm-hmm.
three choices in a moment where our partner is trying to connect with us. We can turn towards them, we can ignore them, or we can turn away from them and actually give them like
Mm-hmm.
negativity towards what they want us to join in on. And so I think the couples that last are the ones that are constantly turning towards each other when those opportunities arise. So that means being interested in something or showing interest in something that's honestly not that interesting to you, but your partner is
Yeah.
interested in it, okay? So
Mm-hmm.
if your husband likes video games and you don't, I mean, sit by him, read a book, be like, "Oh, babe, that was a good
Yeah.
move." Okay. Like
Right.
whatever, like join
Look
in
at you.
on those activities even though you might not really know about football, or maybe you as a man, you're like, I don't really know how to bake, but it's her thing, so you join her a couple times. Like
Yeah.
make those connections. If she sends you 25 TikTok videos, watch them and comment. It's the
Mm-hmm.
little
Yeah.
things. Laugh at each other, share about that crazy ridiculous dream you had last night. Sometimes it's not the huge stuff, it's the little stuff that is huge. So
Yes.
that's my comment there,
Um.
friend.
Right. Friend, you know what? I see this and my heart breaks because I feel like a lot of men
Mm-hmm.
feel like they can't speak
Mm,
about how they deeply feel inside.
you're
And if
right.
you are a male and you are listening to this, I beg of you, please talk to your partner. It is not weak to share how you feel, right, about something that is deeply hurting you. And I think that you are doing yourself a disservice when you have a partner that you can trust and confide in, and you allow yourself to just like fall in the slum and bury yourself in your emotions. And wives, if your husband is talking to you about something that saddens him, listen. Listen. I understand that you have this perspective of what your husband should be and how he should behave, but remember they're human beings and they feel, right? They feel and they go through their own emotional things. And while they're being strong for their families, you have to understand that they deal with their own things outside of the family, right? That can be burdensome, right? So I ask, husbands, please talk to your wives. Wives, please listen to your husband. I'm
Mm-hmm.
begging of you. You know, I watched this video one time, friend. It was, I think it was a YouTube video, but it was also a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And this man, the host asked this lady, she was like, "Is your husband happy?" And she got so offended by the fact that he asked her if her husband was happy. And he was like, "Wait, I'm not. I'm so confused about why you're upset about this question." And she was like, "How am I supposed to know if he's happy?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?"
Hmm.
So listen, I love the concept of happy wife, happy life. Because look, I want to be happy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm a
Uh-huh.
wife. You feel me? But at the
Yeah.
same time, guys, right? At the same time, the person that I'm married to, right? The person that I will be married to, right? Their happiness has to matter as much as mine. You know what I mean? If I am happy and they're not happy, I'm telling you right now, you ain't really happy. Because that can only, I'm serious, friend.
No, you're
That can
right.
only last for a certain time. Like, it's not going to be something that they can keep up for a long time. And so don't allow your happiness to be like, oh, that's the only thing that matters. Listen to your husbands, talk to your partners, hear what they're saying, sit down and ask them if there's anything that is bothering them. And if they cry, so what? Don't you have tear ducts? Like, we are all created with them. Listen to what they're saying. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I feel so bad because it's really disheartening when a person is in a relationship, yet alone married, and you're lonely. That's
Mm,
crazy.
that's sad.
You know what I mean? I hear
That's a
people.
really distressing place to be.
That is so crazy. I've heard people all the time say, "Oh, I'm a single mother," but they're married to like what? What do you mean? You have a whole husband. I don't understand that. So,
Yeah.
guys, please talk to your partners. You should not be lonely in a marriage. You should not be lonely in a relationship. And if you can't rectify it, if you're not married, just let it be.
Mm.
Leave it to the Lord.
You know, friend, they say, what did you say? Happy
Wife,
wife, happy life.
be
That's how
life.
it goes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 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 yeah.
You know, they say,